was just like in tears. You could tell when she went in to get coffee, she was not in a good place. And she came out and she sat and drank the coffee and listened to us play for a while. And she's like, oh, she said, but you also given me an idea. This was yesterday. So I opened gifts, I put my costumes on, but I had already picked up a slow music because I didn't know how long she wanted me to play, but I figured if I gotta pick all this stuff up and go, I'm not gonna play 2 songs that we know I play the same. So, no, I cannot offer my keyboard service. So, when I got there, he was outside with her son. She was just like over the moon excited. Sat me up in her living room and she said, okay, I want you to start measuring your verses. And he's not a musician, he is a huge music fan. So when I started playing, he said, what's that? And he comes literally shuffling in into the living room. And so I got my sweatshirt on, my hat, my slippers, and the whole 9 yards. And he was just over there. So he's calling everybody and and he said, look what I so he was awesome. And then good morning, Kim. There's a couple of things that are different with the music. Okay. The Prelude.
Come on. I gotta be able to see. Okay.
Too many things are on our necks these days,
Yeah.
huh?
Okay. Now I think I got it.
Okay, the Prelude. So, after you talk for a bit, Prelude this morning. Joy to the World. And it's arranged by John Carter. And then after Spirit of Life, we're going to do the Book of Life, the Spirit of Life song, and then after that, Jim's going to play another one.
Okay.
So right here. Jim's going to play the first Noel.
Okay.
And then that's also arranged by John Carter. And then at the very end of the whole thing,
The end.
End.
Maybe this page here, I think.
Okay. The closing hymn is not Jim. It's one of our choirs, the Uufcc choir.
Okay.
And it's a Kwanzaa song.
Okay.
I can't say it, so I'm just going to write it for you. Bwana Abariki.
Okay.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
Alright, thank you. Thanks for that script. You did a great job of helping me out with that.
Do you care which side you sit on?
It doesn't matter to me.
Okay.
I guess I prefer to write.
Okay. We need to watch for Corey to signal us when the song is done before you start talking. So he's going to start and play Enter Rejoice and zoom in.
Okay.
And then he's going to wave his hand, and that's when you can start.
Great.
Okay.
Enter, rejoice.
ready.
Yeah, well, I was at Home Depot.
Really, I thought just one, and Shannon came here hours later.
Oh, yeah, that was it. In the movie, this is your idea. Oh, thanks, that was
They were all my
that was this,
So Ken, I've been replaced.
Pardon?
I've been replaced.
Yeah, without even being fired.
That was the shortest time a Chalice lighter was employed, is that right? Less than 30 seconds.
Where's Betty? And
Okay. Okay, they're ready for you.
ready?
Yep.
Good morning. Our singing invitation has welcomed you into this gathering in our sacred space here at Unitarian Universalist Society of Charlotte County, otherwise known as Uufcc. I'm Ken, and I'll be your worship associate this morning. In a more secular organization, that might be called Master of Ceremonies. Before we roll along here, I want to express some gratitude and thanks. First to Corey and Sharon back there who are taking care of our electronics, the miracle by which we welcome you here if you're viewing from home. And this is being broadcast on YouTube Live. We also express our thanks to Jim, Linda, and members of the Uufcc chorus for the recorded music you'll hear today, and especially to our music director, Jim, for the renditions he's going to give us on the piano later. To respect and protect everyone's privacy, we only use first names in these troubled times. For those of you watching at home, you might want to have a chalice or candle nearby to light as we do our chalice lighting here in the fellowship. And at the end of the service, those on Zoom can gather together at the address given in our weekly update to have a social time. It will take a minute or two after the service to get that set up and running, but please be patient. When the service is over, we ask that you please exit through the door to my right, and social gathering will be outside on the patio where you can unmask and let people see your smile. You are welcome here at Uufcc. no matter who you are, no matter where you come from, no matter your background or your spiritual journey. You know you come here for different reasons. To find community, to seek your spiritual and personal truths, to ask questions, to nurture and be nurtured, to explore new ideas. We come from different places, different religions, different beliefs, and different backgrounds. We trust you will find something here that you need: comfort, connection, challenge, love, and we hope you will find ways to help others in this building and in our local community and in the world community. If you are new here, please stand or wave your hand as you are comfortable so that we can welcome you. Anyone? If you have not already, please take the opportunity to meet with one of our membership team following the service. Well, I guess our membership team is off the hook on that one. If you're new at home and would like to learn more about our fellowship, you can email Mary Jane at office@uufcc or visit our website at uufcc.org. And wherever you are, we're glad you have chosen to spend your Sunday morning with us. We now begin the service by lighting the chalice, a ritual that unites Unitarian Universalists around the world. I'm going to ask Betty to light our chalice, and I'm going to ask that we read our affirmation, which is up on the screen now, I think. Love is the spirit of this fellowship, and service is its law. This is our aspiration, to dwell together in peace, to seek truth and love, and to help one another. I invite you now to light your chalices or candles at home. Our prelude this morning is Joy to the World, arranged by John Carter and played by our music director, Jim Boyle. That was a unique arrangement, masterfully played. Thank you, Jim. The opening words today are by Bob Sewell of the First Parish Church, Lexington, Massachusetts. Out of the darkness, light. Out of the light, warmth. Out of the warmth, joy. Out of the joy, togetherness. And may this flame hold us together for the time we are here for one another. We have a long tradition here at Uufcc of sharing our joys and sorrows and milestones by entering them in the book of life. The messages can be written in the red book at the back of the sanctuary, and those at home are welcome to email their entries. I would ask Gurio to please bring me the book of life so we see what we have today. Thank you. There's Tina. Ranger, their dog, has returned. Oh, and Gurio is out of the hospital and improving steadily, as we just saw. Prayers and thoughts for Debbie Conrad's sister, who is in hospice. Let's take a moment to reflect on those joys and sorrows. May we also hold one another in love and tenderness, so that this fellowship may be a source of strength and comfort, courage and hope in the days and weeks ahead. We will now have our first hymn, Noel, again played by Jim and arranged by John Carter. Oh. Thank you so much, Jim. I notice on my notes here that I missed inserting our Spirit of Life music. So I'm going to ask Sharon and Corey if we can insert that later, just before the sermon. I'll give you a heads up. In our tradition, there are two things that make this congregation possible. One is your membership. Two is your financial support. It is our privilege and our responsibility to provide both to ensure the health and future of this fellowship. To this end, your pledge or donation to support the ministry this ministry may be made several ways. You can mail checks to the office, or drop them in our mailbox, or call the office to make other arrangements. You can drop your donation in the basket by the exit door. Or you can make a donation through the Venmo app. Payments through Venmo should be made to Uufcc offering. Your generosity is appreciated. If you are with us for the first time, do not feel obligated to give. Your presence is a gift to us. Now may we have Spirit of Life. To our wonderful musicians. It's become a sort of Christmas tradition here that member Dennis Shaw would grace us with one of his childhood Christmas stories. Dennis is not here today, but he has given us his words, and they will be read by Laura Anderson. Laura?
Good morning. Reflections of Joy by Dennis G. Shaw. December 26, 2021. This is how you know it's really Dennis. He starts out, dear ones. The last time I spoke to this congregation, my reflections focused on the theme of gratitude. My reflections on joy, the theme of this morning's presentation, will also begin with gratitude. I wish to express my special thanks to Laura for reading my words. Bosco and I are in Richmond, Virginia, visiting my beloved daughter Katie, her partner Jeff, and their 2 dogs, Sarah and Chloe. While I realized that I could have Zoomed these reflections from their new home, I really wanted you to hear my stories in real time, in real place. I would also like to express my gratitude to the members of the worship committee, Laura, Lori, Kay, Sharon, Ken, Joseph, Dorothy, and Reverend Kathy. They have done a stellar job of planning and executing our worship services this past year. I applaud their decision to commit to using the Soul Matters materials that help us focus on monthly themes and inspire us with themed-based resources. Finally, I offer my thanks to Chalice Circle members, Cheryl, Mary H., Mona, and Ken. Our last session on the theme of joy inspired stories that opened new avenues of insight and delight. This is where my story starts. The circle began with the question, can you define joy? Surprisingly, while all the participants had experienced joy, no one could offer a clear definition. However, as we shared our stories about swinging as high as the sky, witnessing childbirth, interacting with art masterpieces, sliding with young children down a sliding board into a puddle of mud, exploring foreign lands, dancing with abandon, hearing good news when expecting the worst. Joy was present in all of these. Each of us could relate to the joy experienced through music, poetry, and interactions with nature. In gratitude, I will also mention that we all agreed that joy was commonly experienced when we listened to the amazing piano presentations by Jim here in the fellowship. Also, we unanimously came to the conclusion that while the definition of joy is elusive, it is something we have all experienced and certainly desire. I am not going to attempt to clearly define joy this morning. Instead, I will share a few holiday stories that have the experience of joy as their connecting thread. So it's December 26th, the day after Christmas. In my family of origin, this was an extremely important day because at last my parents could finally experience desperately needed rest. It was also an important day for my brothers and me because we were free to play with our new toys and didn't have to be on our best behavior for any relatives. December 26th was a day for delicious leftovers, play, and most importantly, a release from the fear that Santa was watching to catch us being naughty. In the home of my childhood, Christmas was a day of conspicuous consumption and impossible expectations. December 26th, on contrast, was a day of freedom, often interspersed with sheer joy that is frequently experienced while playing. Now that I have become an old man, December 26th has become a day of reflection. I reflect on the moments of joy I experienced preparing holiday celebrations and interacting with family and friends. I also revisit the memories of Christmases past. I have been a Unitarian Universalist for over 45 years. During each of those years, my beloved liberal faith has grown and helped me cope with life's challenges and celebrate its gifts. My faith has also freed me from the frequent and fearful judgmental aspects of the Calvinistic faith of my childhood and the literal interpretations of Christian myths. When I first became a Unitarian Universalist, I felt that I had to justify the time, money, and energy I invested celebrating the Christmas holiday. For several years, I tried to convince myself that I wasn't really celebrating the historically inaccurate birth of Jesus. I told myself I was celebrating the winter solstice. But with just a casual inspection of my home, you would encounter 2 nativity scenes, an array of angels and stars, and hear the refrains from dozens and dozens of classic Christmas carols. So, it is without an apology that I confess that I, a committed Unitarian Universalist, celebrate Christmas. And now, I will tell you why. I love decorating my house. I surround planting beds with multicolored LEDs, intentionally using asparagus fern to soften their intensity, thus creating the illusion of colored fog. I place battery-operated candles in the windows and carefully unpack boxes of Christmas memorabilia. The memories of people, places, and former homes frequently overwhelm me as I attempt to tastefully arrange seasonal symbols on freshly dusted and polished surfaces. Several years ago, when Mary H. bought me at the Uufcc service auction, I was given the task of emptying her attic. She had decided that climbing the ladder to retrieve unused and forgotten items was dangerous and unnecessary. Up in her housetop, I discovered boxes of dust-covered Christmas decorations that obviously had not been displayed for years. After the boxes were carefully carried down the attic ladder to the garage floor, I gradually became aware of the treasures they contained. I was shocked when Mary said they would be given to the Goodwill. Without a moment's hesitation, I dared to suggest that these ornaments from her Christmas past should find a much better designation than the shelves of Goodwill. Mary graciously agreed to give them to me. And I spent the remaining hours of that Saturday being delighted and inspired. The following Monday, I made a monetary contribution to Goodwill to eliminate that guilt that my uncharitable greed instilled. In one of the boxes I acquired from Mary's attic were beautifully crafted tall nativity figurines. After reading the price tag still stuck to the bottom of the shepherd, my initial thoughts were, these certainly did not come from Woolworths, and they are not toys. My next thoughts were memories of the nativities of my childhood that were displayed at the base of the Christmas tree as the centerpiece of my father's replica of our town. The little town was surrounded by train tracks, which carried my father's collection of Lionel trains. My brothers and I spent hours under those trees, creating interactions between the miniature townfolk and the Holy Family. One year, Jesus was decapitated when he was accidentally thrown from the coal car into the Monongahela River. I quickly learned that these characters could be easily replaced and were marked down at least 50% after Christmas. The first years after Mary's nativity came into my possession, the Holy Mother, not to be confused with Mary H., Joseph, Jesus, the 3 wise men, a shepherd, a donkey, and sheep were carefully arranged on faux velvet outside the reach of neighbors' children. However, the display, which received very positive praise, seemed to emphasize the gaudiness of the rest of my holiday extravaganza. But this year, when I carefully unwrapped the tissue-clad figurines, I realized that one of the wise men had gone AWOL. I was sick and carefully researched every container. Finally, I had to admit that somehow, in the chaos of repacking Christmas 2020, he had been accidentally stored in the trash and was lost forever. I tried to stage the familiar ensemble on the top of my great-aunt Dorothy's antique china hutch with tiny white lights and translucent red, green, and silver ribbons But without Gasper, the effect I was trying to reconstruct was lost. While rinsing spinach for my dinner, I continued to mourn the wise man's demise. Then, out of the corner of my eye, I spied the little figurine of James Dean. You know where this is going. The little figurine of James Dean, a gift from my late friend Wanda. Without hesitation, I dried my hands, picked up the super idol of my youth, and placed him in between Balthazar and Melchior. While James was half the size of his companions, the effect was beyond perfect. It was hilarious. With a sense of joy, I realized that Mary's expensive figurines had become toys. The scene was finally complete after I found a tiny knitted hat for the shepherd and broke off a wooden keg from a sled ornament so James Dean would have a gift to offer. So the gifts of frankincense, gold, and myrrh became the gifts of gold, frankincense, and beer. The last was a gift intended for Joseph. God knows he needed a mug or two after his ordeal. This year, realizing that I would be traveling during the holidays, I decided to decorate last year's potted Norfolk Island pine. Through the magic of solar spotlights and the careful placement of spikes and tiny twinkle lights, sparkling plastic Christmas balls, and a glitter-covered bow, the tree became the centerpiece in my backyard. But despite the tree's festive presence, I was dissatisfied. I missed the intimate presence of an interior tree. I attributed this feeling to the memory of decorating my first Christmas tree. As mentioned earlier, preparing for and celebrating Christmas in my home of origin was a stressful and exhausting exercise. I have often wondered how my parents, Bill and Laverne, survived it. I doubt they would have without the presence of my paternal grandmother. On Christmas Eve, my mother had to prepare supper, bathe and dress 5 little boys in homemade holiday-themed flannel pajamas, and then get us to calm down for sleep after the local TV weatherman projected a radar image of Santa's sleigh packed full of presents, flying full speed toward Pittsburgh via reindeer power. Next, Mom and Dad had to shower and dress in their finest attire before heading out bearing gifts and trays of goodies to at least 2 parties. Following the parties, they drove to the church, often in several feet of snow. There, Dad, with the help of one of the other available elders, prepared for midnight communion while Mom performed her last rehearsal of O Holy Night prior to the service. She insisted on this rehearsal so she could be sure the organist was sober enough to play. Upon arriving home in the wee hours of Christmas Day, they would proceed to decorate the tree, set up the train village, and assemble all the Japanese-produced toys, following instructions composed with literal translations. As the wrapped gifts were carefully placed around the train platform, 5 little boys were calling from their beds, "Has Santa been here yet?" Following the opening of gifts, the mountain of shredded gift wrap and ribbons was cleared away, and preparations were made for Christmas dinner and the arrival of Aunt Elva, Uncle Bob, and their 2 daughters, Kathy and Carol. I can't imagine where my mother found the strength and energy on Christmas Eve to hand wash the good china and the inherited crystal. On my 10th Christmas Eve, my father suggested that it would be a great help to him and Santa if I stayed up and kept Grandma company. Then he suggested that the 2 of us could decorate the bare tree. I could barely believe my ears. I was going to decorate the tree for the whole family with only my beloved Grandma to help. That magical night was a non-stop experience of joy. After my parents left, Grandma led me into the guest room where boxes of lights, bulbs, and tinsel covered the double bed and floor. Grandma was a brilliant organizer. After the angel was attached to the top, she methodically offered strings of lights. She steadied me on the stepladder as I began the slow job of encircling the tree. She advised me to tuck the lights under the branches to produce the effect of colored fog. Over hours, I hung bright Christmas balls, played with the placement of bubble lights, and finally hung the silver icicle strands one at a time. As I curled to her outstretched arms on the sofa, we both knew that together we had created the most magnificent tree ever. As I began to nod, she turned on the television set. From somewhere in the heavens, a Roman Catholic high mass was being broadcast. It was in Latin. I wanted to change the channel until she told me that she had grown up Catholic and was quite devout until she married my grandfather. He insisted that she convert to his Protestant faith. Then, as inspired by God, she jumped up and raced to the guest room, then the kitchen, and finally the dining room. When she reappeared, she was wearing a long red winter scarf and carried a small tray. On the tray was a half-filled wine glass and a sugar cookie. Then she asked if she could serve me communion. I was so surprised that I responded by getting on my knees and opening my mouth. The wine was bitter and the cookie was sweet. Then she kissed my forehead and told me how much she loved me. Following our communion, she swore me to secrecy. I held that sacrament in my heart until after she died in 1982. The joy experienced that Christmas Eve was generated by love and creativity. I called my daughter, a professional sculptor and graphic artist, and shared the story of decorating my first Christmas tree. Reliving that story once again produced and shared joy. After I finished our conversation, I received an inspiration. I didn't need to decorate a tree. I could create a Christmas sculpture for my lanai, one that I would see as I entered the front door. Over the course of days, I played with an old, rusty metal, 3-foot cylindrical candle holder. The cylinder walls were perforated, creating tiny windows which allowed the interior light to project geometric patterns on the surrounding glass sliders and walls. After sanding and painting, I wrapped 200 warm white twinkle lights on sturdy rods and anchored them to the cylinder's interior base. Then I capped the top with 2 crystal plates separated with a clear cocktail glass. With the addition of superglue, I had created the perfect tiered stage to display my internally lit Santa, a leftover from a Uufcc rummage sale. When I taught young children with developmental challenges, my brother Bob would send me knitted finger puppets for Christmas. These detailed tiny creatures were created by Peruvian children and sold from the sidewalks at the wholesale district of Pittsburgh. When at school, I always carried half a dozen or so in my pants pockets. They were perfect for getting and maintaining attention, stressing a point, or eliciting a giggle. Upon retirement, these precious tools of my trade became Christmas tree ornaments. This year, the tiny pigs, monkeys, tiger, lion, wolf, giraffe, reindeer, fish, alligator, llama, dog, and cat and beaver joined the knitted superhero friends on 2 layers of crystal surrounding a glowing Santa. The exterior walls of the metal cylinder were then covered with magnetized, sparkling jeweled trim. White and gold crocheted images of bells, angels, and snowmen, dozens of bright plastic reflective magnets, and several dozen vintage glass Christmas balls salvaged from Mary H's attic. I had so much fun creating this holiday centerpiece that I may mourn when it's time to disassemble it. But even when it is stored away, I won't forget the looks of awe of the faces of the two young neighborhood girls I invited to attend the Christmas sculpture's premiere. These children were obviously sharing my joy. I will conclude my reflections of joy by reading a quote that Brené Brown included in her article, The Gifts of Imperfection. Twinkle lights are the perfect metaphor for joy. Joy is not a constant. It comes to us in moments, often ordinary moments. Sometimes we miss out on the bursts of joy because we are too busy chasing down the extraordinary moments. Other times, we're so afraid of the dark that we don't let ourselves enjoy the light. A joyful life is not a floodlight of joy. This would eventually become unbearable. I believe that a joyful life is made up of joyful moments gracefully strung together by trust, gratitude, inspiration, and faith. May your holiday and new year be filled with joyful moments and numerous blessings. In faith and love, Dennis. When Dennis shared this with me, a week or so ago, it was so that I could practice a little bit before I spoke to you. And I said to him, I can picture this in my head. I know what this looks like. And so he sent me some pictures that I'd like to share with you. I'm not sure how Dennis's mother put up with those 5 naughty boys. Now, he didn't talk about them being naughty today, but he did other days talk about how naughty he and his brothers were. And if he was the worst one or the best behaved one, I don't know. But the way Dennis turned out, I just think his poor mother. But anyway, Corey, could we show the pictures? Oh, you can see them. So is this the picture of the manger? No. It's the picture of the sculpture. Isn't that creative and beautiful? And then we have a picture of the Christmas tree outside in his backyard, which is also lovely. Now, just in case you're worried that this might be his last Christmas message, you may recall we had a windstorm last week. Dennis's lanai and his Christmas tree in the backyard will never quite be the same. He said to me that next year he'll talk about the revenge of the Yule angels. Thank you.
We can always depend on Dennis to remind us how humor and humanity are part of our spirituality. And thank you, Laura, for doing such a great reading. That was wonderful. It's now time to highlight Uufcc special events and activities in the section we call Life of the Community. Please remember to check your weekly Uufcc updates, which includes a calendar and links for connecting via Zoom or in person. All are invited to send events that they want to have highlighted during your service to worship associates at bookoflifeuufcc.org. Today I have the following announcements to read. None. And now we come to extinguishing a chalice. As we read our closing words, Betty will come up and extinguish the chalice, but not the light of hope, the fire of commitment, the warmth of community, These ideals will shine in our lives and warm our hearts until we are together again. Closing words are by Lois Van Leer. Having let go, set our intentions, named our curiosity, and given ourselves over to lives of balance, purpose, and meaning, let us begin again in love. Our closing hymn today will be a Kwanzaa a musical by the Uufcc choir, and I guess that includes Jim too. And I'm not sure I have the spelling right here, but it's Bwana Awabariki.
Bwana awabariki, Bwana awabariki, Bwana awabariki milele. Ukimcha Bwana, Bwana awabariki. May God grant you a blessing, may God grant you a blessing, may God grant you a blessing evermore. In unity, may God grant you a blessing. Bwana awabariki, Bwana awabariki, Bwana awabariki milele. For work and purpose, Bwana awabariki. May God grant you a blessing, may God grant you a blessing, may God grant you a blessing evermore. For creativity, may God grant you a blessing. Bwana awabariki, Bwana awabariki, Bwana awabariki milele. Strengthen our faith, Bwana awabariki. May God grant you a blessing, may God grant you a blessing, may God grant you a blessing evermore. Cooperation, may God grant you a blessing. Bwana awabariki, Bwana awabariki, Bwana awabariki milele. Cooperation, may God grant you a blessing. Bwana awabariki, Bwana awabariki, Bwana awabariki milele. Music and dance, Bwana awabariki.
Go now in peace and be a blessing to the world.
We do have a solstice ceremony tonight at 5:30 right here,
Okay.
outside by the fire pit.
Did everyone hear that? A solstice ceremony at 5:30 tonight outside by the fire pit. Any other announcements? Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. It was wonderful reading.
Well, it's easy to read Gratitude's great stories. I'll put this away.
I'm glad he gave it to you in advance, because
Yes.
practice really helps.
Yes,
He was so funny.
he is hilarious.
I really enjoy being in his Chalice circle.
I bet. I enjoy mine as well.
Mine from last